Today, I'm going to show you to paint dragon scales Alpha Legion style. Yo dog, Katie Boucher here, Next Level Painting, hitting you up on the literal best of all days. On this glorious Friday morning, in the Beats Lab in Hollywood, California, I got another painting tutorial for you guys. Today we're gonna do Alpha Legion, some 30K action. We're doing the Tribune, Praetor, and Tartaros Terminator armor, and we're gonna paint some dragon scales. Now, if you've been following along on Twitch, I have showed you guys how to lay this down with the airbrush, how to do some interesting iridescent chameleon schemes. This is why you don't want to miss Twitch. On Twitch, we do live tutorials. It's a different experience. A lot of what we've done on this model, I sourced from you guys live on Twitch. You guys decided what color we're going to paint the spear. We worked on this armor together. You're missing out on half the show if you guys don't follow along on Twitch. In the midst of all these new GW releases, I wanted to go old school, want to do some Alpha Legion. I'm glad you guys picked that color scheme anyway. So that gave me an opportunity to show you this really cool, iridescent way to do it. We're not going to be covering that in the video. We did that on Twitch, as I said. But I want to say that GW is doing a great job putting out these models, putting out new products and easy ways to achieve tabletop painted standard armies, you know, so that way literally people have no excuse anymore. That shit makes me happy, and that just means that the communities are growing together. GW, hats off to you. I want to shout out John, my man Ricky, Scott, and my man Jackson. Thank you guys. I can't do it without you. Patreon is my crowdfunding page. It's how I keep the lights on and how you gain exclusive access to these videos. Don't forget, thelongwar.net is the home of the battle reports. It is the fastest growing library in video content related to the hobby. You're not going to want to miss it. You get 7 days for free, literally, and you get all the discount codes. Check it out. Let's do this thing, guys. All right, guys, let's do this thing. So this is the Alpha Legion color scheme we've been working on Twitch. This is the Praetor Tribune in Tartaros Terminator armor. This is a special collectible model. Of course, he will be a top bidder to give away on Twitch. So the first thing we're going to do is an ancient Chinese technique. We're going to sketch out a diamond pattern with just a mechanical lead pencil. And you can see we're just making the quick little strokes, keeping it kind of light. Of course, we already seal coated this model, so the paint is pretty well protected from the pressure of this pencil. And basically the idea with scales, the easiest way to do scales is to basically create a diamond, which is the same thing as checkers, just diagonally. So you're creating like basically the standard classic hazard stripe pattern here, going right to left first, get a good angle on it, and then just come back and cross over. And you can see that's very diamond, right? But if you look at it a different way, it's also scales. So the two major colors we're going to be using are Gnarls Green and Necrotite Green. We're going to make a nice thin down Gnarls Green, and we're going to trace the lead pencil. We're going to just trace out what we did. And for the most part, we're just the pencil strokes are going to stay on the model forever. But a nice thin coat of Gnarls Green is going to turn it into a nice shade. Try to control your flow. You don't need to be super precise here because, you know, there is going to be a little back and forth blending, but it's not that hard. I'm going to show you guys it's actually pretty easy. So you can see here, the main thing you want to focus on here is keeping these lines straight with the subtle curve of the shoulder pad. That's probably the most difficult part of this type of pattern, is following the natural curve of the shoulder pad down and keeping the right thickness on the lines. Not too hard, but not that easy. And the good thing about doing scales over like a diamond, you know, pattern like on the Harlequins is that the scales get to be a little bit more organic, so you can be forgiven for being off in the shape a little bit. So I'm liking where we're at right now. Just taking my time, nice and easy. You can see those lines are pretty thick, pretty broad, and they're not really that clean. That's fine. We're going to come back and clean them up. I'm using the right amount of water, the right amount of paint. It is thinned down, and a lot of that graphite is showing through for the pencil. And that's cool because it's going to create a nice, cool little inner core to our shade. And we didn't even have to paint it. Imagine trying to paint that skinny little black line. The shit would have been so fucking annoying. So we're almost here. We're almost ready for the next step. But you saw right there, I let that one stroke get away from me. I'll have to come back and clean that up. But thus is the nature of freehand, as it were. Like, I'm not the best freehand artist. I just try to figure out easy techniques. So let's grab this necrotite green, and now what we're going to do is basically just kind of shade or highlight the bottom of these scales where the light would catch them. Because the idea is that the scales are overlaid on each other. So the bottom would be where it's brighter and the top would be the shadow of the scale above it. So we're just drawing some quick blocked in highlights, almost like cell shading. We're not overthinking it. We're making sure that our paint is nice and thin though. You don't want, the last thing in the world you want is your freehand to get thick on you. So you want to stay thin. Now you can do a lot of this with like washes. You can go on very subtle with washes over and over again and get the shades the way you want and never be in danger of getting your paint thick. I'm essentially doing the same thing but with paint. By keeping the paint so thin, we're basically creating a wash or a glaze because we're using a brighter color here. So nice thin strokes, creating that little bottom V, creating nice little highlights. You're gonna have to be patient here. Go through, do them all. It's gonna take 1 or 2 coats. Don't hyper focus on a perfect blend. Stay more in the blocked in cell shading world, but keep your strokes clean. You can see it's coming along. We even come back in now with the gnarls green, and we've done the same thing but on the top of the scales, creating that shadow. A very thin, basically dot, like a watered down, you see right there, like dab of gnarls green. And that's creating our shadow. That's basically like a wash. And we're just gonna go through and create this little shadow on these scales. Let it dry. Do it again, let it dry. Very thin. Keep that paint from building up on you. Because the second it gets texture, now the whole illusion is broken. Like it just clearly now has been paintbrushed by us. And you want the model to be inside its fantasy. And you can see now we're getting some nice three-dimensionality. The scales are overlaid on each other. You're highlighting them kind of in a way that doesn't seem natural mentally. We're highlighting the bottom of the diamond and shading the top. But that's the right way. That's what makes it look three-dimensional in this situation. Because these scales are supposed to be fat and textured and layered over each other. So far, so good. We're just going to come back in here and reinforce some of these highlights. That now that we've gotten nice subtle blends in there. But like I said, it's all real broad. We're still doing regressive strokes and aggressive highlighting. We're not wet blending. We're not thinning. We're not trying to like force the paint to do what we want. We're being patient. We're layering the paint. We're using very thin coats. This is not wet blending. This is layer blending. And I have a final trick once we get there on how to tie all this heavy blocking, exaggerated details in together. But for now, you just have to be subtle. So one of the major rules with contrast is make it brighter and make it brighter. So now we're going to add a little necrotite green in with a little flash gets yellow, and we're going to brighten up those highlights one more time. Because you can only do 2 things with contrast. You can go darker on one spectrum, brighter on the other. Well, essentially, our crisscrosses are almost black at the center, with then gnarls green on top. It's basically about as dark as I dare go. Now, let's just make those highlights pop, make them more extreme. It's going to give you more three-dimensionality and more interest. It's going to look like it's curving naturally with the shoulder pad. We're making a much thinner line here. It's still very thin down, so it's going to be 2 overall coats here, 2 passes. Come through, hit it all one time. By the time you're done with that, it's dry at the beginning again. Work your way back. 2 coats, probably all you need. That flash gets yellow does work. One of my favorite colors in the game, guys. Strongly recommend picking some up. I've rarely used a yellow that is more bright. And that combos off a necrotite green. You'll notice I'm using the old pinky brace right here. Right hand pinky braced on the model itself while holding it with my left hand so I can stabilize and really get in there and do those details without spilling out of the lines, without undoing any of the shades we've been doing. Trying our best preserve the cleanness of this thin layer blending technique. Feeling pretty good about that. This is what I love about freehand. Even though it's hard, it is rewarding. Here's the last couple of dots, final exclamation points on those scales, coming in just dabbing on some pure yellow, trying to create a nice glistening three-dimensionality to it. Still blocked in, still very cell shaded, very exaggerated. It's clean strokes, but they're not blended. They're mainly dabbed in, which is a technique. It's more of a canvas painting technique. Like, we get really obsessed with cleanly blending everything in a 40K, and you can still dab them in like this with watered down layers and get the effect you want. All right, we're gonna call that good to go, but there's still more. I gotta do one more thing because it's still really exaggerated and it's not nice and subtle. So to protect all that very soft layered blending we did, we just glossed this shoulder pad with Vallejo gloss varnish. Protects it and breaks up surface tension for Waywatcher Green, which is a glaze. Another amazing product from GW. We're gonna lightly glaze the entire shoulder pad over the gloss varnish after I've given it a couple hours to dry. I've mixed in a little water with the glaze, doing one thin coat. We're gonna let it dry, then we'll do another thin coat. And there we go. Now we just knocked all those colors in together. The glaze blended all the scale highlights together. It's no longer exaggerated and blocked in. It is now perfectly blended. Here is a sneak peek of the final product. Now, you can see that this guy looks a little different than the other guy. All his highlights are done. His edges are crisp. He's got that exciting iridescent paint scheme. He's looking his best. This guy will be a top donor to give away on Twitch. That is what Twitch is all about. We paint models together, and then I give you guys an opportunity to take them home and swag. Check out the rewards store today. Thanks for watching, guys. Play on, players. If you like these tutorials, check out Next Level Painting on Patreon. Become a patron of the arts today. We offer early and exclusive access to our videos and a rewards program for different pledge levels. Patreon is PayPal and credit card secure, so you don't have to worry about that. We use 100% of the money to improve our process.